I wrote this in my journal and I shared it on my Instagram. It was a thought that provoked so many feelings in a space in which I was at one point in my life. And so it goes. Today, I want to remind you to be patient. Just hold on a little while longer. What you desire requires you to reside in the waiting season in order for you to be prepared to handle and keep it in your flourishing season. Sometimes we desire so much, but lack the ability to know how to manage it. And you can't afford to mismanage what God has for you. Be patient. I remember so many times overthinking and feeling that if I just prayed for it, that it would instantaneously come to fruition. There is this way in which we go to God in the moments in which we want something. I started thinking about that. The same way if you have children, it seems that your children are only nice to you when they want something. They clean up the house when they want to go out with their friends, or they're buttering you up to put you in a good mood so that you would say yes. And if we are totally honest with ourselves, we do the same thing with God. We do good for a little while, right? As a way of saying, God, look at me. I'm doing all of the things. Now I'm going to come to you in prayer and I'm going to pray about this thing for a series of days. And I just know you're going to make it happen. You're going to make it work. And I'm going to get what I pray for. And because he knows our hearts, he knows that we are coming from a place of selfishness. There is this need to want what we pray for and what we desired. But just like a parent, to a child, we decide, we are the deciding factor of when, how, and to what capacity. And so when I wrote that in my journal and I started and began to think about my journey, even my walk spiritually, and how I employed God in praying about things that I wanted when I wanted them most, and the heightened of that feeling of needing, I also realized I wasn't doing the work on the back end and that I wasn't consistent in my spiritual life. I want to remind you also that many times what we want, the big things, the things that we want to put in our hands, the things that we think is tangible, the things that we feel is going to bring us happiness, God already knows that it won't. It will bring us more problems. It reminds me of so many people who have hit the lottery and got monetary gain. And it gave them a temporary happiness because now they have a increase financially. They are able to purchase anything, houses, cars. They can give money to long lost family and friends. And then a few months later, maybe a year, you hear about their downfall and the way in which they are spending their life now. And many will tell you on the back end that it wasn't worth the money. It wasn't worth gaining what it is that they thought was going to give them happiness. They got it, but they weren't able to hold and maintain it. On a personal note, there again were many times that I had prayed for things to happen and realized on the back end, God didn't give it to me because he knew that I couldn't handle it. Emotionally, I couldn't handle what it was that I was praying for. Financially, I could not handle what it was that I was praying for. Physically, I couldn't handle what I was praying for. Many times we pray for new jobs, new positions, right? Because that new job and that new position would gain us some form of financial status. It would bring us up, give us more than what we have now. Or the position would be another position up to something that we've been putting our eyes on, working our way up to the ladder. But many times God doesn't give us that because he understands that, number one, we shouldn't even be at that job in the first place, right? That there is other opportunity somewhere else. Number two, You're not ready to handle the responsibilities of that job, the one that ensues more responsibilities. Maybe it's more hours. Maybe the financial increase means that you'll go buck wild because financially you don't know how to handle your money. The more money you get, the more you spend. God knows us. And why would he allow us to put ourselves in a deeper hole? Maybe you are wanting this relationship so bad. Maybe you're single. Maybe you want to be in a relationship. You want to be loved. You see all of your friends in a relationship. You see them happy. You don't know what goes behind closed doors, but you want it. But God also knows that maybe the person for you hasn't come yet because you haven't worked out what you need to work out within yourself. You could be in a relationship with someone and want to be married, and it hasn't happened yet. Could it be that this person is not the person for you? That God is stopping you from years of being in a marriage that doesn't suit you well? It's something to think about. Many times we want the things that we see tangible, that works for our ego. You want a bigger house. You want a newer car. You want a car that costs $80,000 and you don't have a $80,000 paycheck coming in. Sometimes God allows us to do some strange things to teach us a lesson. And then other times he just says, wait, my child. And many times in those lessons as well, even when we're thinking highly about the things that we want, there is a moment where you are in the waiting room. And when you're in the waiting room, you begin to drift off and think about certain things. God gives us that space to think a little harder about the decisions and the things that we want. And in those moments in that waiting room, you also get a space to understand that maybe some things are not meant for you right now. And it's okay. Sometimes God shows us ourselves and how we selfishly want certain things that are not needed, but they are wanted. We have to trust that what God has for us is bigger than what we have right now. And if you can't handle even the little things that you possess, how do you think that you can handle the big things that God is placing in the storage room? It is true that patience is a virtue, and many of us are not virtuous in patience. It shows us a lot of who we are, and it shows us how we can be when we don't get what we want. And then there are some who understand that enduring patience to get to the end, to see what it is that God has for you, those are the ones who are rewarded. I want to remind you to keep holding on, to not give up in this season while you're sitting in the waiting room. I want you to employ knowledge and wisdom. Understand why it is that this waiting room is serving you best. Why it is that God didn't instantaneously give you what it is that you asked for, but made you wait a little while longer until it is that your big blessing comes. Your role is not to pray to God to receive something and then forget about him the next day once it's given. Your role is to always have a constant communication with him, much like we are as parents with our children. And I know many parents often say this: you only come to me when you want some money, or you only come to me when you want something. But I really wonder what God would say if he could speak loudly to us. You only want me when I can give you something. And that says a lot about ourselves in our secret corners, in our secret spaces, in our secret thoughts, and who we are spiritually. So that may be the reason why you didn't get what it was that you thought you were supposed to receive is because God knew that you couldn't handle it. And maybe it is that you didn't get what you received because it's not your time. And maybe you didn't get what it is that you've been praying for, that you thought that you would receive, is because what you think you should receive is not really for you. And instead of bringing you joy, it would bring you misery. And sometimes God closes a door to protect you. If this is your first time here, my name is Lisa Marie. I am the host of Season Dialogue. I also have a podcast. You can also see me on TikTok and Instagram, but here you can tap into YouTube. I would very much appreciate your liking the video and then thinking about subscribing as well. I don't know. I just have raw conversations here. I don't do anything that's fancy. I'm just here to be intentional and be an authentic soul. Many of the things that I speak on is just things that many people think about anyway in their day-to-day life. And I'm just here to be real. That's it. If you like what you heard, hit the like button and subscribe. Other than that, I'm gone. All right? Peace.